Imagine a tsunami, but it is not made of deep blue ocean water, nor is it crashing onto a sunny tropical beach. It is a black, viscous, warm, and frothing tsunami. It stands over 4 meters tall, weighs thousands of tons, and it is barreling through the streets of London on a gloomy, foggy afternoon. This is not a strange dream. This is one of the weirdest disasters ever recorded in human history. The London beer flood of 1814. 99 weird events that happened. During the London beer flood of 1814,
Welcome to Weird History of Sleep.
Welcome to Weird History of Sleep. I am so glad you chose to stay here tonight. Right now, find your most comfortable position on your soft bed. Pull the blanket up to your shoulders. Feel the softness of the fabric touching your skin. Take a deep breath in and breathe out very slowly. Tonight, we are turning back time. We are drifting into the past, to the year 1814, in the impoverished district of St. Giles, London. Don't try to memorize the numbers or events coming up. Your only task is to listen to my voice. Let your imagination float along with the flow of the story, and gradually sink into sleep. We will count together, not counting sheep, but counting 99 small, strange, and true events that made up that historic flood of beer. Close your eyes and let us begin. Number 1. The fateful day was October 17th, 1814. It was a typical gloomy Monday in 19th century London. The sky was gray, the air was damp, and the narrow alleys of the St. Giles Rookery were still submerged in coal smoke fog that had not yet lifted. Number 2. The location of the incident was the Moo and Company Brewery. This factory was located at the intersection of Tottenham Court Road and Oxford Street. At that time, it was one of the largest and most modern brewing facilities in the British Empire, the pride of London's beverage industry. Number 3. The type of beer that caused the disaster was called porter. This was a dark, thick beer with a high alcohol content that was aged for a long time. Porter was the favorite drink of the porters at the London docks, which is why it bore this name. Its color was as black as the night. Number 4. The obsession with giant size. In the early 19th century, London breweries raced to see who could build the largest fermentation vat. It was like an arms race, but made of wood and beer. Moo and Co. wanted to be the king of this race. Number 5. The giant vat stood 6.7 meters tall. Imagine the height of a 2-story house. That was the height of just one beer vat inside this factory. It towered like a wooden fortress within the dimly lit warehouse. Number 6. The diameter of the vat was up to 18 meters. It was so wide that you could comfortably host a dinner party for 50 seated guests right inside the belly of the vat when it was empty. A true monster made of oak. Number 7. The total capacity was 3,500 barrels. According to the measurements of that time, this figure was equivalent to over 610,000 liters of beer. More than 500,000 liters of liquid were tightly compressed in a single space, waiting to be unleashed. Number 8. The weight of the iron hoops. To keep the oak staves from bursting under the immense pressure, 29 large iron hoops were used to encircle the vat. Each iron hoop weighed about 300 kilos, thick and cold, hugging the vat's body like rigid ribs. Number 9. The first warning sign came at 4:30 p.m. George Crick, a veteran warehouse clerk, was inspecting the area. The space was quiet, with only the slight groaning of wood and the pungent smell of beer yeast in the air. Number 10. The Slipped Hoop. Crick saw that one of the iron hoops, the one located at the lowest position, bearing the most load, had popped off and fallen to the warehouse floor. The sound of metal hitting stone rang out sharply, but then faded into silence. Number 11. The Eerie Calmness of George Crick. Strangely, George Crick did not panic. He had worked there for 17 years. Hoop slipping happened 2 or 3 times a year. To him, this was just a minor maintenance issue, not an omen of the apocalypse. Number 12. The Letter to the Repairman. Instead of sounding an evacuation alarm, Crick calmly went to the office, took paper and pen, and wrote a note to the partner responsible for repairing the vats. The content was simply, "A hoop has fallen. Please come to repair it when possible." Number 13. 1 hour passed in silence. From 4:30 to 5:30 p.m., the giant vat still stood firm, despite missing its most crucial hoop. The pressure of 10,000 liters of beer was silently pushing against the wood grain, seeking the smallest weak point to escape. Number 14. The explosion that ripped through the night. At exactly around 5:30 p.m., when Crick was standing just a few meters from the vat, he heard a terrifying sound. It did not sound like breaking wood, but like a heavy cannon shot firing right next to his ear. Number 15. The domino effect of the vats. When the main vat burst, the force of the liquid was so strong that it smashed the other surrounding beer vats. Thick oak fragments flew like cannonballs, completely destroying the internal structure of the warehouse. Number 16. The 70 cm thick brick wall collapsed. The brewery was built very solidly with brick walls nearly a meter thick, but the black beer tsunami rammed through the back wall of the factory as if it were made of papier-mâché, bricks and stones scattered onto the street. Number 17. The total amount of beer released onto the streets. It is estimated that about 1.5 million liters of beer from the main vat and the broken secondary vats spilled out in an instant. A massive amount of liquid suddenly appeared in the heart of the cramped city. Number 18. The height of the beer wave. Witnesses recounted that the initial wave of beer was up to 4.5 meters high. It was twice the height of a person, sweeping away carriages, stalls, and anything that blocked its path. Number 19. The St. Giles Rookery sat on lower ground. The terrain of this area sloped downward. This meant the beer flood didn't just spread, it rushed downhill with accelerating speed, aiming straight for the dilapidated, shabby homes of the poor laborers. Number 20. The basements were submerged. In 1814, many poor families in St. Giles lived in underground cellars with no escape windows. When the beer arrived, it poured down the stairs leading to the basements, turning these homes into deadly swimming pools filled with black beer in mere seconds. Number 21. The first victim was the Tavistock Arms pub. This pub was located right next to the brewery walls. It is ironic that a place selling beer was destroyed by beer itself. The flood rammed straight into the shared wall between the two buildings with the power of a freight train. Number 22. The fate of Eleanor Cooper. Eleanor was a young girl of just 14, working as a servant at the Tavistock Arms. At that moment, she was washing tin pots in the backyard. She did not hear the loud explosion from the factory, and the beer swept her away instantly. Number 23. The temperature of the flood. You might think beer is a cold drink, but no. The beer in the vat was undergoing vigorous fermentation. The temperature of this flood was quite warm, about 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. It was like a river of hot water, steaming in the cold October air. Number 24. The thick layer of foam. The terrifying thing about porter beer was not just the liquid, but the foam. When 1.5 million liters were released, it created a layer of foam meters, thick, floating on the surface. This foam obscured everything beneath, making holes or obstacles invisible. Number 25. The pungent scent covered the whole district. The smell of burnt malt, the heady scent of yeast, and the alcohol fumes rose so strongly that residents several blocks away could smell it. The air became thick, sickly sweet, and dizzying to anyone who inhaled it. Number 26. The collapse of brick walls. The Tavistock Arms pub wasn't just flooded, it collapsed completely. The weak mortar and brick structure of the 19th century could not withstand the lateral pressure of the liquid. The pub turned into a pile of rubble in seconds, burying everything inside. Number 27. Acceleration in the alleys. When the beer flowed into the street named New Street, a funnel effect occurred. Flanked by tall rows of houses, the flow was squeezed into the middle, causing the speed of the beer to increase terribly, ripping up cobblestones. Number 28. Oil lamps were extinguished. As it was late afternoon, many homes had lit oil lamps or candles. The rushing beer, accompanied by a strong draft of wind, snuffed out all light sources. The entire St. Giles district plunged into darkness, leaving only the growl of the black water. Number 29. The child, Sarah Bates. In a house on New Street, a child named Sarah Bates was playing. The beer smashed through the window, flooded the room, and pushed her crib to float like a small boat on a black sea right in the living room. Number 30. The fateful wake. In a basement on nearby Bainbridge Street, an Irish family was holding a wake for a child who had passed away the day before. They were gathered around the coffin in an atmosphere of mourning and silence. Number 31. The door burst open. The basement where the wake was taking place sat lower than street level. The black beer smashed through the fragile wooden door, rushing into the cramped room filled with mourners. The silent ceremony turned into utter chaos. Number 32. 5 people in one room. In that narrow basement, 5 people could not escape in time. The mother, Anne Saville, and 4 others were submerged by the beer right beside their loved one's coffin. It was a rare and heartbreaking double tragedy in history. Number 33. The stickiness of porter beer. Unlike ordinary floodwater, porter beer contained a lot of sugar and sticky substances from the malt. As it flowed, it left a sticky, slimy film on every surface: walls, furniture, clothes, and human skin. Number 34. The roar of the flow. Survivors described the sound of the flood not as trickling water. It sounded like thunder rumbling underground, mixed with the snapping of wood and the clashing of metal. Number 35. People climbing onto cupboards. In the panic, many residents in low-lying houses had to climb onto wardrobes or hang from rafters to avoid the black water rising rapidly in their bedrooms. Number 36. The wall behind the brewery. The brick wall separating the factory from the residential area was 7 meters high. But when the vat exploded, shards of the wooden staves shot into this wall with such force that they created a gaping hole, as if hit by siege artillery. Number 37. The roof collapsed. The pressure of the compressed gas escaping from the vat explosion was so strong that it blew off part of the Mew Brewery's roof. Tiles and wooden beams fell from above like rain, adding danger to those below. Number 38. The Black River on George Street. George Street was a road cutting across the flow. When the beer reached here, it met flatter terrain and began to spread out, turning the street into a frothing black lake, knee-deep for an adult. Number 39. Confusion with an earthquake. Many Londoners in neighboring districts felt the ground shake when 1.5 million liters of beer crashed down. They ran into the streets thinking a major earthquake had occurred, never suspecting beer. Number 40. The eerie silence after the storm. After a few minutes of violent destruction, the flow began to slow. A silence enveloped St. Giles. No more explosions, no more crumbling walls, only the popping sound of beer bubbles bursting and the suffocatingly rich scent of malt filling the space. Number 41. The first reaction of passers-by. Instead of fleeing, hundreds of curious citizens flocked toward the brewery. In the thick fog and dim twilight, they saw a black river flowing through the streets, a sight their minds could not immediately comprehend. Number 42. The Legend of the Free Beer Party. There is a strange and tragicomic truth. While rescue teams were trying to find victims, many impoverished residents of the St. Giles slum saw this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They saw beer flowing freely, a luxury item they rarely got to drink to their heart's content. Number 43. Tools for catching beer. People ran into the streets with whatever they could hold. Chipped pots, old kettles, bowls, plates, and even felt hats. Everything was used to scoop up the dark liquid flowing beneath their feet. Number 44. Drinking directly from the street. Some people, unable to bring tools in time, knelt down, cupping their hands to drink beer right from the stagnant puddles on the dirty cobblestones. Thirst and the temptation of intoxication overpowered fears of hygiene or accidents. Number 45. The deadly slipperiness. Porter beer, when spilled on the street, was not like rain. It had high viscosity due to unfermented malt sugar. The stone pavement became as slippery as grease. Rescuers constantly slipped and fell, making the search incredibly difficult and slow. Number 46. The silence of the rubble. After the initial blast, the collapsed houses lay terrifyingly quiet. Bricks, wood, and mud mixed with beer to form a thick, muddy sludge, burying any faint cries for help underneath. Number 47. Light from torches. Night began to fall. The night watchmen and residents had to light oil-soaked torches and beeswax candles. The yellow, flickering light reflecting on the surface of the black beer lake created a ghostly, shimmering, yet gruesome scene. Number 48. Intoxicating fumes causing hallucinations. The alcohol concentration evaporating from 1.5 million liters of beer in a confined space was immense. People walking in the area began to feel dizzy and woozy, not from drinking, but from inhaling the dense alcoholic air for hours. Number 49. The human wall stopping the flow. To prevent the beer from flowing further into lower areas, residents worked together to build temporary dams using sandbags, broken furniture, and rubble. They tried to isolate the flood just as one would fight a natural river. Number 50. The resilience of cats. The St. Giles area had many stray cats. People saw dozens of cats climbing onto high walls and remaining rooftops, their fur standing on end, staring down at the black water with terrified eyes. They were the silent witnesses of the disaster. Number 51. The stopped clock. In a flooded house, a wall-mounted pendulum clock was found. It had stopped at the exact moment the beer arrived. The hands pointed forever at that fateful time, as if to freeze history at that second. Number 52. Floating shoes. On the surface of the Beer River, the most common floating objects were not wood, but shoes and wooden clogs. In the panic of escape, or carried away by the current, hundreds of single shoes floated aimlessly, clacking against each other. Number 53. The October chill. As night fell completely, London's temperature dropped deep. The initially warm beer now cooled, becoming freezing and sticky. Those soaked in beer began to shiver from hypothermia, creating a gloomy, numbing atmosphere. Number 54. The color of destruction. Unlike floods from rainstorms, which carry the brown color of soil, this flood dyed everything the dark brownish black of burnt malt. When the beer receded, it left jet black stains on the walls, marking the high water line forever after. Number 55. The creaking of wood. Throughout that night, occasionally, the sound of snapping wood could be heard. It was the sound of wooden beams in the houses, weakened by soaking up beer, slowly breaking under their own weight. Number 56. People sleeping in drunkenness. Ironically, some residents, after drinking too much free beer scooped from the gutters, became dead drunk and fell asleep right on the roadside, oblivious to the chaos and tragedy unfolding around them. Their sleep was deep and heavy, just like the beer itself. Number 57. The arrival of the police. The London police force at that time was quite primitive. They appeared with wooden truncheons and lanterns, trying to disperse the crowd that was looting and drinking while protecting the scene from looters. Number 58. Scattered coins. In the fast-flowing current, small coins of the poor laborers were found washed out from their homes. Metal coins glinted at the bottom of the sticky beer sludge, but no one bothered to pick them up. Number 59. The sour smell of continued fermentation. Upon contact with the air and outside bacteria, the beer began to spoil rapidly. Just hours after the disaster, the sweet smell of malt turned into a sour, pungent, and unpleasant odor, signaling the beginning of decomposition. Number 60. The loneliness of the watchman. At the back gate of the brewery, the watchman still stood there. He was uninjured, but he stood motionless, staring into the gaping empty courtyard where the giant vat once stood. He was the only one to witness magnificence turn into nothingness in an instant. Number 61. The inquest at the pub. 2 days after the disaster, an official coroner's inquest was opened. It is incredibly ironic that this trial was held right at a local pub named the Horseshoe, just steps from the scene, where the smell of beer still hung heavy in the air. Number 62. The jury walking on beer. Before delivering a verdict, the jury members were led to view the scene. They had to walk carefully on wooden planks laid makeshift over the black beer sludge that hadn't fully receded, gazing at the sodden ruins. Number 63. The testimony of George Crick. The warehouse clerk George Crick, who had seen the iron hoop fall, was the key witness. He stood before the court, his face gaunt, recounting the event in a steady tone, insisting that no one had touched that hoop. It fell on its own. Number 64. The controversial verdict. Act of God. After deliberation, the jury delivered a verdict that went down in British legal history. They concluded that the beer vat explosion was an act of God, a natural disaster, the will of the divine. It was deemed an unavoidable accident, like a lightning strike or an earthquake. Number 65. No one held responsible. With the act of God verdict, Moo & Company Brewery was legally innocent. They faced no criminal liability for the deaths of the 8 victims, nor were they forced to compensate the families who lost their homes. Number 66. Compensation was zero. The victims' families, already living in poverty and cellars, were now even more destitute. They received not a penny from the wealthy brewery. They had to rely entirely on charitable donations from London citizens to bury their loved ones. Number 67. The rescue by Parliament. While the victims received no compensation, the brewery was saved. The British Parliament passed a special act, allowing the refund of the excise tax that had already been paid on the 1.5 million liters of lost beer. Number 68. The massive tax figure. The refunded tax amounted to £7,250 at that time, equivalent to hundreds of thousands of pounds today. This money saved Moo from bankruptcy, allowing them to continue operations as if nothing had happened. Number 69. The list of names. Let us take a minute to remember the departed. The official list records 8 people: Anne Saville, 30, Eleanor Cooper, 14, Hannah Banfield, 4, Catherine Butler, 65, Elizabeth Smith, 27, Mary Mulvey, 30, Thomas Mulvey, 3, and Sarah Bates, 3. All were women and children. Number 70. The 9th death. There is a persistent legend about a 9th victim. Rumor has it that a man died days later from alcohol poisoning due to drinking too much dirty beer scooped from the drains. However, his name was never officially confirmed. It floats like a ghost in the stories told. Number 71. Curious visitors. After the disaster, the St. Giles area suddenly became a destination for the curious. Citizens from wealthier districts of London arrived in carriages, paying guards to be let in to see the ruins of the Great Beer Deluge. Number 72. The stench lasting months. Even after the beer receded, the malt residue and sugar soaked deep into the ground. Exposed to rain and sun, it fermented and rotted. This characteristic stench haunted the area throughout the winter of 1814 until the following spring. Number 73. Drunken rats. Local residents recount us that for weeks afterward, the rats of St. Giles behaved very strangely. They ran unsteadily, were bolder than usual, and were frequently found fast asleep in corners due to consuming large amounts of beer-soaked grain. Number 74. The change in materials. This disaster permanently changed the brewing industry. Breweries realized that wooden vats, even with iron hoops, were unsafe. They began switching to concrete vats lined with brick or metal in the following decades. Number 75. Fear of big vats. A strange psychological syndrome appeared among brewery workers after this event. They became terrified when standing near large fermentation vats. Many quit their jobs or moved to smaller bottling departments because of the haunting memory of that explosion. Number 76. Scavenged oak firewood. The massive shards of the accident-causing beer vat were not thrown away. Poor residents secretly collected the thick, beer-soaked oak planks to use as firewood to keep warm through the cold winter. Number 77. The location today. If you go to London today, the Moo Brewery is gone. Its location is now the famous Dominion Theatre, situated near Tottenham Court Road Tube Station. Thousands of people walk over it every day without knowing a river of beer once flowed beneath their feet. Number 78. No tombstone. For nearly 200 years, no memorial plaque was erected at the site to remind people of this disaster. It was like a stain the city wanted to forget quickly, buried under layers of modern concrete. Number 79, the silence of the international press. In 1814, the world was preoccupied with the Napoleonic Wars. News of the London beer flood appeared only modestly in small newspapers, overshadowed by war news from the continent, making it an oddity rather than a national tragedy. Number 80, dreams of dark water. Many survivors of the disaster, especially children, reported recurring nightmares throughout their lives. In their dreams, they saw themselves chased not by monsters, but by a wall of black, warm, and sweet-smelling water. Number 81, the resurrection of the pub, the Tavistock Arms, which was completely demolished by the beer flow, was later rebuilt. The new owner continued to sell beer right on the old ground, as if to prove that life must go on, regardless of disaster. Number 82. The brewery operated for another century. Despite causing a horrific disaster, the Mew & Company Brewery continued to operate at that location for over 100 more years, pumping smoke into the London sky every day until it closed in 1921. Number 83. The end of the giant era. After the 1814 event, British breweries gradually abandoned the race to build monster-sized wooden vats. They realized that spreading risk across many small vats was safer than betting everything on one giant wooden dam. Number 84. 1928 and the Dominion Theatre. In 1928, the entire old brewery area was leveled. On the foundation once soaked in beer, the magnificent Dominion Theatre was built. The place that once held the tragedy of the poor is now a place where joyous musicals resound. Number 85. Old bricks underground. When excavating foundations for the theater and modern buildings later, workers occasionally still dug up old bricks from the 19th century, blackened and crumbling, the last traces of the St. Giles rookery. Number 86. The decline of porter beer. Porter, the main character of the disaster, gradually lost its monopoly by the end of the 19th century. British tastes shifted to lighter lagers or stouts, like Guinness. That Black River also washed away its own golden age. Number 87. The humble memorial plaque. It took nearly 200 years, until 2012, for a small blue plaque to be considered for placement near the area to acknowledge the event. History sometimes moves at the speed of a snail. Number 88. The annual anniversary. Today, on October 17th every year, a small group of London history enthusiasts gather at a nearby pub called the Holborn Whippet. They raise a glass of porter, not to celebrate, but to remember in silence. Number 89. Comparison with molasses. Over 100 years later, in 1919, a similar event happened in Boston, USA. The Great Molasses Flood. People often mention these two events as an odd couple in the history of unnatural liquid disasters. Number 90. No reported ghosts. Although 8 people died unjustly, strangely, there are no famous ghost stories attached to the Dominion Theatre or this area. Perhaps the beer washed away the spirits, or they found peace. Number 91. Change street names. The narrow streets where the beer flowed, like New Street or George Street, have today been replanned, renamed, or have disappeared completely from the modern London map. The old terrain exists only on yellowed old maps. Number 92. A lesson in hubris. Modern engineers often use the London beer flood as a prime example of engineering hubris, when humans try to create things too large, exceeding the control limits of natural materials, disaster is inevitable. Number 93. Invisible sediment. Geologists suggest that deep beneath the concrete and asphalt of modern London, there may still be a thin layer of sediment containing organic residue from the beer flood, a timeline marker lying dormant in the earth. Number 94. Forgotten noise. The sound, like a cannon shot of the snapping iron hoop back then, has now been completely replaced by the rumble of the subway running right underneath and the honking of double-decker buses above ground. Number 95. A unique event. Throughout thousands of years of human history, never has an event exactly like this been repeated. A tsunami of alcohol in the heart of a city. It is unique. It is a cosmic anomaly. Number 96. Fact becomes legend. For many young Londoners today, the story of the beer flood sounds more like a fairy tale or an urban legend than a historical fact. Time has covered it in a misty veil. Number 97. Everything becomes dry again. No matter how big the flood, eventually the water recedes. The streets become dry again. Houses are repaired. Pain fades. That is the rule of life and time. Everything will pass. Number 98. The final silence. Now, there are no explosions, no screams, no flowing currents. The St. Giles area tonight is very quiet. Only the gentle night covers everything. Number 99. And the final thing? That beer vat broke. The beer flowed. But all of that was the past of 200 years ago. Right now here, you are absolutely safe. Nothing can disturb your sleep. We have finished counting. 99 facts have drifted by. We have traveled from the noise of a 19th century afternoon to the silence of the present night. Let the story of that black river sink to the bottom of your memory. Just like a small stone falling into a calm lake, sinking down, sinking down. Now feel your body getting heavier. Your eyes are heavy. Your breathing is slow and deep. There is nothing left to worry about, nothing left to think about. The outside world has turned off the lights. Only you and peaceful dreams remain waiting. Go to sleep. Sleep well, and dream peaceful dreams. Good night. Good night.